This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scalability was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.
So if you follow any of Smashy's Instagram accounts, or if you listen to Hala's Tech Bil Arabi show every day, you'll have noticed that there's a lot of fintech money in the region. There's a lot of conferences, there's a lot of investments, there's a lot of people doing startups, whether it's in Saudi, whether it's in Egypt, whether it's in Kuwait. It seems to be the hot new space, and we've had a good few of these companies on the show in the past. We've had Zbooni, we've had Baraka, we've had a few others as well, and it's always good to know how are they going about raising their money, what is fintech, what parts of fintech are we looking at. We're in the middle of March, we're heading into Ramadan. It's sort of we're getting a good feeling of the way that the year is going, and there's definitely such an excitement around startups this year. There's a real energy about the place in Dubai, and it's great to have another one of those companies who are bringing that energy and bringing that excitement around startups and investments on the podcast this week. Welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. This week we're joined by two founders of a new app, a new company. Again, we love talking to founders of startups. It's called Zywa. They'll correct me. On my right, it's Alok. He is the CEO. Alok Kumar is the CEO and co-founder, as I said, of Zywa. And on his right, we have Nuha Hashem, who's the CTO. Alok, do you want to say hello?
Hey guys.
So we can hear you on the podcast, and Noah?
Hi.
Well, obviously they've got a female and a male voice, so that's an easy one. Right. A payment card, an app for teens that helps with managing, saving and spending their finances. Very interesting. So Noah is the female founder in the fintech industry in the region. And they both have just announced that Zywa has been backed by Y Combinator. Well done, very good. As part of its winter 2022 batch, alongside with closing a $1 million pre-seed round. So today we're going to hear about the story of Zywa and the banking industry and how they're going about launching the business. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for having us.
So and thank you for coming in. What's your elevator pitch? How did you raise this money? How do you tell people who you work for, what you do? What's the company all about?
So Zywa is a prepaid card as well as a payment app for teenagers to manage, spend and save money. With the application, teenagers can actually have a seamless interface to handle their finances. At the same time, parents can also utilize the app to give money to their kids, see how their kids are spending, and have an effective oversight.
So what would you add to that?
So technically, we try to bring value to teenagers since we have seen the pain point of the in this era where everything is digital. Teens are still using cash, and so we're trying to bring to them a solution that fits with their lifestyle and their preferences, and we're tailoring it completely to Gen Z while having the parents at the same time oversee their spending and saving habits.
Okay, so it seems like a great idea. It seems brilliant in theory, that obviously educating teenagers and kids about money and savings is really important. But what does it replace the bank? Does it, or how does it work in practice? Are they managing their pocket money? Obviously they're not earning incomes. So what's the actual use case for your typical person who has this app?
So to give context to this, me and Nuha, we were born in the region and raised as teenagers in the region, and we used to use cash, right? It has been a decade since. My brother is 14 years old. He comes to me still for cash or my credit card for his FIFA games or go online and purchase from Amazon likewise. It doesn't make sense that he does not have any alternatives. He goes to the local banks, try to open an account for them. They have a set of rules which prohibits him essentially to have a seamless experience, and that's what we are bridging the gap. We are coming over here by giving them an application which they would love to use. Think about it. They're digital natives, but they don't have a solution in the market yet, and we are bridging that gap by giving them an app.
Okay, so let's run with that then. So your 14-year-old brother, he wants to buy one of those games. I'll pretend I know what it was. And you have to give him 200 dirham. How does that work? Do you transfer it, say you're his parent or you're his older brother, you deposit money into your Zywa app, you transfer it into his account, and then is he able to make a transaction via the app?
So as a guardian or a parent, you can actually load money from a bank account to the application, and then you could transfer to your kid. The teenager can then use that money on his account through a virtual card or a physical card to pay online or offline. That's how that essentially works.
So it works as a pre-top up. So it's not a debit card or a credit card, it's a prepaid card.
Yeah.
And do you have a physical card and an app as well?
We have a physical card, a virtual card, as well as an application to manage money.
Okay, and so, but can I make a payment via the app? Can I transfer, if I'm a 14-year-old, do I use the app to pay, or it needs to be a digital?
Essentially, it's how you go online and pay with your bank account for Amazon purchase and likewise. So you pay with Apple Pay, or you actually enter your card details into the card and you can do it. So think about it like a bank account for you.
I get it.
Translate it to your
No problem. So you have a typical, the 14-year-old will have a Zywa card number, which works like I would enter my card details and they can make the payment. Amazing.
Exactly.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay, simple, done, finished. so the backstory, other than having that insight into your upbringing in this region, do you know much about the fintech industry, both of you? What have you studied, or how have you met? How have you come up with this business?
Yeah. So I'm an electrical engineer, and I come from a tech background, not specifically in fintech, but I'm very passionate about coding and specifically iOS development and everything tech. And I was doing my PhD in the US, and Alok and I had known each other for almost 8 years, and we've been friends since then. And so he contacted me, and he'd had experience with management consulting in relation with the financial industry. And if you would like to talk more about that.
So I'm basically an engineer, right? So I was an engineer. I was born and raised in Saudi. I was working in Saudi as a consultant, where I worked with the governmental entities, and during the time I was working as a consultant, it was the era of transformation. The Vision 2030 was kicking in. A lot of government entities had the motive and had the decision-making tools to do so, but we found there's a gap in terms of operational excellence, wherein most of the initiatives which was actually being proposed, they wanted to do it, but the banks in the region were doing it slowly. That's when we really thought about we can actually start working on something to solve the issue about financial literacy, enabling the youth, and supporting the Vision 2030's element of going digital back in Saudi. And that's where the fintech ideas really started to kick in, and we started exploring the market and researching the market, talking to banks, talking to teenagers, talking to decision makers in the Ministry of Finance and likewise, to understand what's really happening, how the government is trying to support. That's where we actually garnered a lot of research, garnered a lot of key insights, which really validated the idea before we even started writing the first line of code.
Okay.
And we felt that coming from a tech background and also being close in age to teenagers, that it would be, we would be able to build a product that they actually love to use on a daily basis, and will resonate with them. And we talk and get feedback directly from them to actually improve on the product and put features they actually want to see and use on a daily basis.
Interesting. How old are you guys?
I'm in my 20s.
You're in 20s. So you were studying, you're still working. And when do you make the jump? When did this start?
So the idea of Zywa came in around September 2020.
Yeah.
I took the call. I just called up Zywa and I was Nuha, and I was like, you know what? You're the best engineer I know out there.
Yeah.
I want to work with a co-founder who can be with me for the next decade to build a solution which Gen Z in the region loves. I think it's an interesting opportunity. I'm not really sure how would we do it, but I think we can do it together.
Okay.
The first reaction of Nuha was no. And it took 3 months to convince her after talking to about 300 teenagers and their parents and bankers and key stakeholders in the industry to actually convince her to come on board. And that's when we moved to Dubai.
Yeah.
Early 2021.
Where were you then?
I was in Saudi. She was in US.
I was in the US, but I was working in parallel for a few months on both my PhD and Zywa. With the different time zones and everything, it was crazy. But I could see, like, working on both, how much more passionate I was about, like, startup and working on different, verticals and like marketing, products and everything. It was very exciting for me.
Okay, amazing. Why did you say no at the start?
Because I was 2 years into my PhD and I still had 3 years to go. And I was all settled and everything. I was planning to continue over there, but then once I started working, I realized, I felt much more purpose with this, and this is when I decided to move to Dubai and actually quit my PhD and focus full time.
Quite brave. Where were you studying?
Louisiana.
Okay, so you dropped that end of 2020, and why did you guys choose Dubai? Why not start in the US, where the startup capitals of the world? Why choose Dubai? And
So, since we were actually being raised in the region, we do understand what the region is about. And Nuha, being from Egypt, she knows really the Egyptian market. She has been there. When I was in Saudi, we see the teenagers out there who are actually having a struggle. So we wanted to actually bridge the problem in this market because we know the market well, we resonate with the audience, and we had a firm conviction that we could build a product which the Gen Z in the region can love. And that's what was the trigger to start working on this. And when we looked abroad in other markets, there were similar solutions being done, and they were being localized towards those markets. So there are unicorns in US, Europe, Asian markets who are doing similar solutions. We wanted to bring the best practices to the region, localize it, and we knew that we could deliver it because we were close to the teenage segment. We went through the struggle. We personally experienced it. Working in the fintech industry, we knew that what it meant to deliver a solution which can be done.
Okay, amazing. So timeline-wise, at the end of 2020, you've decided this is what you're going to do. You're going to leave your PhD. You've worked through the process. What was the next stage? When did the name come? Early?
That's an interesting question. So when we started working on the idea, we never put a name to it for two reasons. One, we wanted to make sure that this is a problem which has a magnitude, and we wanted to validate with our customers. Second, we wanted a name which can actually stick with the teenagers. So while we were talking to teenagers, we got an idea of the name and we put some fundamentals on it, and we brainstormed about 70 names based on these fundamentals, and the fundamentals can boil down to 3. Nuha, you want to?
Yeah, so the main things the explaining what Zywa means, the first thing is that it's actually an Arabic word that from traditional Arabic that means enlightenment, which aligned very well with our vision. And the second one is that we wanted a 4-letter word or a short word. It would be easy to find on the App Store. It would be easy to pronounce in whatever language you speak. And the third one, and most importantly, is that we wanted a word that starts with the letter Z, which stands for Gen Z, which is our target audience.
Oh, I like it. Very smart. Well done. That's not just an engineer and iOS. Good ideas as well. So that's amazing. So you have the name, and what next? You moved to Dubai. Did you raise funding then? Did you, getting the name and the brand, you can obviously, because one of your co-founders is an iOS whiz, so you can get an MVP up quite quickly. Is that how you approached it? Did you get the app ready to go, or did you more have an investment deck, and what was the next stage?
So initially when me and Nuha started working on this, for the first 3 months from September 2020 until early 2021, we were talking to teenagers. We felt the problem is there, resonated with thousands of teenagers. We wanted to actually research more, and then we went to bankers in the region. We talked to about 13 banks in the region, and when we were talking to these banks, it was very clear that the banks were not serving this segment and they did not have the intent to serve the segment. That's when we started actually writing the first line of code. We developed a landing page back in January. In the landing page, which we developed in probably a day, We started shooting out to our friends, family. In fact, I shot it out to my brother. He invited his friends over, and then they started actually spreading the word, right? So they shot to WhatsApp groups, and likewise, we got about 1,000 signups in 2 days.
Wow.
And that's when we were like, you know what? Let's move to Dubai. Let's actually start working on it. Have a full-time commitment, because we do know what it means to be full-time dedicated to it, and start talking to the bankers and the stakeholders in the region. We moved to Dubai a year back, around April, and we started writing the app. We bootstrapped initially before bringing on board any investors, because in the early days, it was very important to founders to have enough skin in the game, and we were actually trying to commit ourselves so that we have enough motivation to make sure that the initial idea is validated before bringing an external stakeholder.
And one of the most important things for us was actually having our whole tech in-house and having our own team, for the whole tech, the whole architecture, because this allows us to move fast and be flexible. Whatever features need to be added, whatever tech needs to be tweaked, we can do that super fast, and our team is like working around the clock for that.
Totally. Like, I think that's the edge, isn't it? Like, localizing isn't just changing the Arabic or setting up socials in the region or licensing. Like, localizing means what you just said. Like, you have to be able to put features and develop things that fit the youth. In your case, people are using it. But what I also like is how you almost sort of crowdsource the idea with how many, you mentioned a few times with how much you spoke to young people, hundreds of young people. You sent it to your brother, who's a 14-year-old who's almost an ambassador, who then gets the initial people on board. So it's the perfect sort of incubation of let's get real feedback. It's that kind of real-time beta product, isn't it? So every time you release something, you're not sort of like going to people your age. Like, it's actually the real end users are sort of the first people to see those updates.
Exactly, yeah. And we actually, we're not just, like building a service or an app for them. We're building a community. So we communicate with them on different channels, and we have a group where they can come and actually give us feedback, like the teens themselves, the users. And
is it a WhatsApp group or a Discord?
Discord.
There we go.
You got it.
Very Gen Z, yeah.
Yeah, and also we have a lot of like physical events where we go and meet and talk to them, and we found that when we do that, we actually get more quality users who vouch for us. They're the ones who are like marketing for us on their social media, wearing Zywa merch and taking photos and videos.
Yeah, brilliant. So you're in Dubai, you've coded it, you've got people signing up. How do you, and you mentioned sort of kind of holding on to control before you raise money. How do you look at the raise piece? Because it's interesting that you talked about Saudi and Egypt as well. Like, it's hot at the moment, right? Like every day on Smashy, we're announcing a new press release or an update about fintech. I'm like, where is all the money coming from? But there's just so much ideas, and there's so much energy around fintech in the region. It's almost like a fintech region at the moment. So you had loads of people queuing up to invest, or how did it go?
So when we were actually starting to go full-time into Zywa, one of the key principles we had when it comes to raising funds was, whoever we bring to the cap table, we wanted to make sure that this investor could add strategic value in terms of product. So that strategic capital was one of our core essence. So what we did is we went to Crunchbase, shortlisted about 400 to 450 investors who were entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs who had built things in the region, abroad, fintech, food tech, be it whatever, but great products.
Yeah.
We shot about 350 custom emails.
Yeah.
Of like tailored to them, saying how it can resonate with them, how they should come on board, engage with the idea, how we could have a mutual collaboration. Likewise, about 188 of them rejected us. It was a pass.
Yeah.
We got a 189th investor who's an entrepreneur, a successful, who got bought out, and likewise, and he immediately had that buy-in, right? He was like, I love this. I know what you guys are building. It makes sense.
Who is he from?
He's from the region.
Oh, wow.
He's an entrepreneur in the region. He built one of the really successful tech startups in the region. we were super proud to bring him on board because we knew that he could add a lot of value in terms of product, in terms of decisions to do so. Because we are young founders, we wanted to make sure that the product which we built for Gen Z is something which they love, and why make mistakes which others have made when we could actually make new mistakes by bringing in experts and build a good product.
Amazing. So that again, it shows how you're doing things organically and with your research, whether it's speaking to 300 people, approaching 300 or 400 investors. Did you only get one interest? Was it only one person out of all those who you long listed on Crunchbase?
So the first interest came in back in March 2021.
Yeah.
Ever since it was like a exponential curve, we had more and more interest, and we had the luxury to pick the right investors who made a lot of sense to us. We were trying to bring in a lot of strategic angels early on because we knew that when we were raising check size under $1 million, you can actually bring in a lot of strategic angels.
Yeah.
And then later we would be going on to raise institutional investors. So we are focused on strategic value add to the product.
And it was a pre-seed, so not an angel round, a pre-seed, but did you have a lead VC, or did you have anyone leading that from an investment point of view?
So what we try to do is we try to raise in safes, which is essentially we see an angel investor, we see a fit, we discuss how we can collaborate. Great fit, we sign a safe, and then we raised in small tranches. Why did we do this? One of the biggest key takeaway from our previous experiences was it's about having leverage. And founders need to have leverage when discussing with investors. We did not want to give too much of equity when we had just an idea. We wanted to build something, validate, get a small investment, go abroad, just build more. So we were trying to raise in small tranches, and we were getting investors coming in small tranches based on milestones.
That's smart. So you can actually go case by case, lock that in, move on to the next one. You're not committing too much in equity. You're not committing too much in valuation. You just have people with the angel mindset of like, hey, I want to be part of this. I'm in early. Let's see what these guys can do.
Exactly. And it's also easy to, raise big rounds and things like that. But we really want to raise as much as we need until we get to that product market fit stage where we can actually, scale and go from there. Fascinating.
Yeah.
And the right people, when they see that the founders are having enough skin in the game, they're actually making traction on a very short period of time. And then when they resonate with our vision, that's an immediate click. And that's when we actually try to leverage them. We have calls with them probably on a monthly basis to show them, hey, this is what we built. What do you think about it? They give us any opinion. We take to our users and say, what do you think about this? So we made sure that the investors are actually parents or actually users who could actually come in and start giving us feedback.
Yeah.
And we actually went to the teenagers to resonate the feedback.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. I do want to fast forward to today, but before we get there, I'm not talking necessarily about the fintech or industry in the region or banking, but just from your point of view, what did you have to do? What is this? Is this a financial institution? Is this a bank? Are you holding cash? Are you holding first-party data? What type of licensing did you have to do between April 2021 and now? How were you regulated? You're in Dubai. Are you in DIFC? What did you do in that space?
So from April 2021 onwards, we partnered with key stakeholders like banks who are regulated entities. We brought in schemes who can actually support us, and the schemes were having discussions on behalf of us, and we were able to have a partner in Egypt, have a partner in UAE who's already regulated, and we are collaborating with them to acquire users and leverage their existing institution and infrastructure to issue cards. So they store the value while we act as an interface for the users. For the users, we are the entire, let's call it the experience, the payment app, but it's powered by the local banks which we have in UAE and Egypt as I speak with you. We discussed with about 3 banks. We finalized 2 of them in each market. And as I speak with you, our beta is already live. We are planning to go live with the full version in a few weeks and as a soft launch. And in this summer, we'll have the live app and issue the first card.
Okay, amazing. So I like that approach because it's always good to be backed by a regulated financial institution, yet being your standalone product and not being exclusive to one, so it's a separate company. But then I assume that also helped with acquisition, because they can offer this product to their existing adults, guardian type, typical bank account holders. Is that what happened? Is that what they're going to do as part of the partnership?
Yeah, for sure. So the parents from these specific banks, they're able to connect to our app. Not specifically with our partners. I mean, they can have their own, like we're bank agnostic, so they can connect whatever bank account or credit or debit card they have to the account to load the money into the app.
Okay.
And one important thing which we prioritized over was the go-to-market. We wanted to make sure that we are not going to the market in 24 months or 30 months. We wanted to go to the market as soon as possible with an MVP product. That's why we got on top of many partnerships. The idea is to launch the MVP, to scale it up and reach the product market fit, add additional licenses which will help us to offer more value-add services to our user segment.
Okay, so often when you're building an app or a marketplace or a utility, it kind of needs two parts, two entities or customers or people to come together. Whether it's the whether it's the company or the institution and then the user. It seems like in your case you need three. You need the guardian to have the app, you need the kid to have the app, and then you also need the financial institution. Is that accurate, and is that more complicated to have three people to buy into something before it works?
So the way we see it, it is in fact two stakeholders. So one is the regulators, the banking institution, the schemes. The second is the teenagers themselves. Our thesis is if you focus on teenagers, they becoming ambassadors to have onboarding, to have their parents onboarded, and that's the approach we are focusing with.
That's very smart.
In fact, so right now, even the teens we have onboarded into our beta app, before they finish their sign up, they have to invite their parents. So their parents are also over there. So the teens bring the parents in.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just you're tapping into it, like human nature and behavior of kids asking their parents for something rather than the other way around. So I want to play Roblox, I want to play Fortnite, I want you to top up here's the app, this is how you do it. Yeah.
Exactly. And for the parents, it's also super convenient for them because they don't have to think, like they can even automate the allowances to their kids every month. They can just forget about it. They can just put it in there, top up their wallet, and it just transfers automatically.
Okay, so speaking of kids, like do they obviously need to have a smartphone? You're on iOS, I assume. Are you on Android now as well?
We're releasing soon on Android.
But they have to have a smartphone. What's the penetration of smartphones in your age group would be what, 13 to 19, or do you go younger?
13 to 21, as we speak. In fact, most of them are already digital natives.
Yeah.
They are on TikToks and Snapchats and likewise. So that was never a challenge. We focused on iOS apps because initially we thought the fastest MVP was to go through iOS and teenagers use iOS. At the same time, we built a Play Store app and we are planning to release in a few days.
Yeah, the use of iPhones in the region is much higher than Android phones.
And our audience, they love iPhones and they're already on iPhone 13 or likewise.
Yeah.
And then I'm on my iPhone 10. So
yeah, they're ahead in every way. Yeah. So okay, so you've got the kids on board. Do you have to, is there any other regulation as well as having the partner? Is there anything else you need to consider when you're creating a product for that age group? I know in marketing, it's hard to get into schools. It's hard to, is there any other, especially with finance, right? Because, you don't want to create bad habits around money with people of that age. So who's governing you and how do you sort of enter that demographic?
So if you look at the macro in the Middle East and North African market, you're talking about north of 570 million population, about in 20 countries with 20 different regulators. So it's a really fragmented market. Each market has its own regulators. So it's really hard to build an experience which can cover the entire market, and you need to go case by case. For that reason alone, we started focusing initially on UAE as well as Egypt. and Saudi Arabia. We believe these are the three markets which is our target market for the next 3 years. And these three markets, we already had key stakeholders. For example, in Saudi, we brought in an advisor who could actually help us with the banking regulators as well as the central bank. In UAE, what we did is we already spoken with certain schemes to bring in the banks to us. In Egypt also, we already brought in some banks to us. We were going through the bank route to talk to the central bank and bring the solution fastest to the market because it's really hard to do it alone. And we try to gather in as many resources as we can to get the product live.
Yeah. So that's a nice segue into what I guess a big question, which I was holding off asking, is why aren't they already doing this? Well, you know, they're the big institutions that talk about digital banking in this region, particularly. They like to launch their own versions of this rather than startups happening. Why is there an opportunity for Zywa to do it? Why isn't this already ticked off? I'm a customer with HSBC or Emirates NBD or whoever, and I go in and I've got someone I want to give money to. Why isn't there already an app that I can transfer money as a guardian to someone younger?
Some of the banks in the region already experimented it and have an application as a card, but the target audience you're talking about, their needs are changing and they have a different set of expectation when it comes to user experience. Most of the banks are not able to deliver because think about it. You're serving the SMEs, you're serving the ultra high net worth individuals, you're serving the millennials. You have a huge array of market which you can serve better compared to the ROI when you serve these teenagers who does not have an income, who are relying on their parents. So for the banks, from a vision level, it does not make sense to have that OPEX invested into this segment in terms of an ROI. Second, the banks do believe when they reach the age of 18, they don't have any other choice and they would come back to them. So they would rather address the high value segments rather than this segment compared to the OPEX involved.
Interesting.
And also being in Y Combinator has helped us a lot. Like we're getting mentoring from founders of some of the largest neobanks in the world, and they're really helping us, to get to the best, customer experience there is, and also bringing in like this kind of like Silicon Valley, quality product over here. And speaking of banks, also one thing that works for us great is that we're bank agnostic, so if you're, like you mentioned, with HSBC or any other bank, you would have to be with that specific bank to get that card. But for us, you can connect any bank account here. Exactly.
Yeah. You spoke a little bit about Y Combinator. That's obviously quite prestigious and well known. How do you get into that, and what is it? Are they stakeholders? Is it an incubator? And what happens in that scenario?
So, as you probably already know, Y Combinator is the largest startup accelerator in the world, and they have a very low acceptance rate, almost I think 1% globally. And so you just apply, and when you get into Y Combinator, you go through a 3 months sort of like incubation, like accelerator thing, where we get a lot of sessions and a lot of mentoring and office hours with the partners and everyone until it concludes with demo day, where you present to like invite only audience of investors from all around the world. Right. And they help us with the fundraising as well as building the product. And their motto is to make something people want, and this is what we have in front of us every day, just to make something people want and something that our users really love.
And going through Y Combinator really helped us in many fundamental ways. For the basics, we really wanted to build a Silicon Valley class product in the region, and Y Combinator made perfect sense to us. Because we would be making a lot of mistakes if we didn't go through them, because they were operators themselves who built billion-dollar products in other markets. So they have those experiences which can act a long way for us. Along with the network which brings in of other Y Combinator alumni like Airbnb, Stripe, Brex, who have already done a lot in terms of hiring great talents, attracting great users to their platforms. So these are the things which really Y Combinator adds a lot of value, and people believe that this will help us to go closer to our vision, which is to make the Gen Z in the region go cashless with an amazing user experience.
Nicely put. That's the elevator pitch. But and Nuha, you mentioned from a product point of view, creating something for the users. How do you go about that? What do they want? You know, you talked about your brother Alok, that he wanted to buy a game or whatever. But what else are they doing with money? Like, are you teaching them how to save? Are they buying crypto? What are they doing?
Yeah, so there is actually a savings account tied with the card, so they can put money aside for specific goals. If they want to save up for, like, say, games or whatever they want to buy, they can put it in buckets, and from there they can just keep it aside for saving. At the same time, we're actually and this is a big part of the beta app that we released a few days ago, is we have a gamified environment where they actually learn about financial literacy concepts in a fun way, not in a classroom or preaching kind of way, but in a way that instead of having them go to classrooms and try to learn about these financial concepts, we actually bring it to where they are, which is the smartphone. They're always on their phone, so we just bring it to them and do it in a way that they resonate with, which is the gamified environment. And speaking of crypto and NFTs, I mean, we already have our users on Discord, discussing about this all the time, and so this is also one of the things that we focus on in the product, is because Gen Z is very dynamic and their needs are changing every day. So we want to be flexible to move fast with that.
Okay, so I imagine I'm technically just about the generation before, the millennial generation. But if I was a Gen Z, my very scant knowledge of digital banks I would think I would be with one of the well-known digital banks from the US or the UK, or maybe one of the ones that are like Revolut, or one of these ones, are the ones that are coming up here, like Zand and these other ones that are launching. But how do you get me early, and then what happens when I turn 21? Like, am I still with you, or what's the strategy here? Do I keep my Zywa and then I also launch a digital bank? And, like, for example, my first job or my part-time job, what account am I giving it to them? Do you have a strategy around that?
So one important thing while we were building our MVP, we kept in mind is, apart from payment experience, we wanted to focus a lot on financial literacy, because as you know, in the region, the financial literacy element is lower than 50%. It's close to 45. So what we wanted
What does that mean? How do you know that? What classifies 45% financial literacy? People know how to save, or what?
So think about the adults in the region who are taking up loans, who know the basic fundamentals about managing their money. It's very low compared to the global average. That's why in the region, if you find more than 60% of the adults in the region do have loans. In fact, 72% of the adults in Saudi, they do not have much savings in the age bracket between 25 to 30.
And you'd be surprised how many people don't even know about, like, what interest rate is.
So when you take this into account, it's very important to make sure that you have these principles embedded onto this young audience from day one onwards. So in our app, we made sure that the financial literacy component is done in a gamified way. And this is how we are planning to scale up to our target audience when they grow to the age of 18, when they go to uni, they go to work. We want to make sure that the kind of features, be it financial literacy, be it spending, saving, it can actually build as they age, and we add value-add services when they go to uni, when they go for work. Right now in our app, we are actually allowing anyone until the age of 21. In fact, in the beta application, we had about 100 users in day one, of which 20 to 23% of those users were actually 21 years of age when they already can open an account with other banks. And this boils down to two reasons. One, the customer experience. Two, the kind of functionalities which we tailored for Gen Z, which they cannot find in other applications.
Yeah, interesting. So it does seem to me that you probably are you could see your product or app evolving into other needs of those people in those age as well, such as their first bank account as well, and you know, do you think that's true?
For the next 3 years, we are focusing on teenagers to go cashless. It is ambitious and it's nice to have that as a roadmap, but as an MVP, we want to stick with our users, the teenagers between 13 to 19, build a product they love, make sure that they go from cash to cashless, and then add a lot of value-add services like Nuha mentioned, which can really accentuate their experience. Believe it or not, in our Discord account, there are certain teenagers who are 14 years old talking about NFTs and cryptos, and they have been in the space for 2 years.
Of course, these people. This is the future. Amazing, and it's fascinating, and you get that feedback as well. So you'll obviously, I think it's fascinating to see what will happen with your app, especially having a CTO as a co-founder as well, and adding the features. I want to take a step back into, we talked about banks, but I want to ask you both about the fintech space in the region. Kind of hinted at that was hot. We've had a lot of different fintech type companies on the show in the past, from payment gateways to different types of functionalities. And I personally, I'm often left with a feeling of, wow, they're brave. They're brave people because it seems like an industry that, yes, you can come up with something niche, but if the big player does something, if Apple partners with Stripe, or if Facebook Messenger offer, payment transfer, it's game over. It's obviously not as simple as that, but it just seems to me as such a risk to try and go in there when all the big boys need to do is go bang, and go, or if Visa or MasterCard or one of the big banks get their game together. I was going to say get their shit together, but if they do, then it's kind of like, and when I kind of think of that, I go, well, I'm in media and I invest in some media companies, and it could be the same thing. Why are you investing in a small startup company? Why wouldn't Spotify just eat that? So I kind of get that, but do you not feel like if someone, what if Apple just launched a card, like Apple have Apple Pay? What if Apple something? Excuse me, like Zywa, what will happen then? They all have iPhones.
It's an interesting question, and I do believe that the fintech industry in the MENA region is at its infancy period, and there's gonna be a lot of startups doing a lot of cool stuff, especially in the fintech, because most of the user segments, be it Gen Z, millennials, they don't have quality options in the current environment, and there's a lot of gap in the market. Be it lending, be it BNPL, you talk about it, you have a lot of options to actually bridge the gap. And I think the big players, for them, if you think about it, in the region, coming to the region, discussing with the regulators, scaling that product, the kind of resources involved to do it, it's not granular. It takes a lot of efforts. So I think the startups are the ones who are going to win in this market for the next decade, because as the regulatory maturity increases, there's going to be a lot of fintech startups who are going to do a lot of interesting things, which could bridge a lot of gaps. And when the big players come in, most of them would have a head-to-head competition. Some of them may get acquired, but I still believe that some fintech startups would become the Revolut of MENA or the Stripe of MENA. And I see that happening very soon. Think about it. Until 2018, the amount of fintech funding and the amount of fintechs in this region was relatively low to what it is right now.
Do you know those numbers roughly?
I think Magnet is the best example. If you go to the Magnet, and the kind of funding in the 2022, it has, in the last 3 months, it's really high compared to 2021 across.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It's fascinating. And I totally share that with you. I think, yes, we will have new companies that emerge. I just think you're brave because it's a hard thing to get into. So what does the future hold? You've raised funds now. What size is your team, and what's your kind of product roadmap plans for the next kind of 12, 18 months?
Yeah, so right now our team is about seven members, including us, and
Are they all based here in an office in Dubai, or are they remote?
5 of them are in Dubai, 2 of them are remote.
Where's the office? Or where are you?
We have in JLT and
Astrolabs?
no,
You have an office?
Yeah.
yeah.
But you licensed it under DMCC?
and we have one in DIFC also, which is a co-working space.
Yeah.
So that's our 2 offices.
Yeah.
And our 5-member team is spread throughout the 2 offices.
Yeah, exactly. So right now we, as we mentioned, like we were completely focused on building a great product earlier, and now we're heavily focusing on marketing and meeting our users in person and talking to them and getting feedback from them. So as we launched our beta app, we're slowly onboarding our users from the waiting list onto the app to make sure they all have a great experience. So we incorporate the feedback as we go, and after that, as Alok mentioned, in a few weeks we'll have our soft launch, after which we will be rolling out with the cards, and so. Actually, our cards, we tailor them around like personalities. So not exactly just a card that you spend with, but an emotion, you know. So like if you're a specific personality, you can resonate with this card. And we also tie it to specific causes, which we have identified that Gen Z really care about companies that stand for specific causes. So we're really building on top of that to like in terms of the community, in terms of the causes we're contributing to, as well as giving them a great experience.
To add to what Nuha mentioned, in the next few months, what we are focused on is really enhancing our product. First, getting the first 100 customers who love you, then the first 1,000 customers who love you, and try to iterate the product with their feedback and likewise. Because we believe this is the way you actually build that organic base who would love you, who would actually find fellow teenagers in our community. The reason why teenagers come to Zywa should not be for just the app or the card, but finding fellow like-minded teenagers who resonate with their values, who resonate with their ideas, who can collaborate with them. We're trying to create that kind of teenage club, wherein the Zywa club comes in, where teenagers or like-minded teenagers
That's
come.
the name of the Instagram channel, yeah, Zywa Club. So
And
it's
also,
a community.
yeah, exactly. And also, when you see that users are like bringing feedback or issues they're having and things like that into the community, instead of like just deleting the app and leaving, and they're still using it, you know that they actually love the product and they want to stick around.
Yeah.
In fact, from our Discord, we already got 3 interns
Yeah.
who volunteered. We are like, can we intern for you? Can we manage your Discord account? Can we actually manage your Instagram account?
Yeah.
So, and they are actually creating content for us on a daily basis.
Wow.
So they are the ones who are ambassadors, and that's the kind of product we want to build for them, for their friends, for their family in the region for the next 12 months and get that product market fit.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, if I was, I could see how that could appeal to investors because of the way you're approaching the youth and making them part of the story as well. It's really interesting. Kind of 2 questions to finish on. One, in relation to the different countries that you're focusing on, because they are different. And, you know, say UAE, KSA and Egypt. Yes, the kids might need to be able to afford an iPhone, but the affluency and the GDP and the different makeups of the economies is different, and so would consumer spending habits as well. Do you tweak your product? Do you tweak your approach, or do you kind of go, this is us, and people can use it in any way they want?
You're absolutely right in terms of the localization. In fact, to give you an example, in Saudi, the language in, let's say, a city called Khobar or Riyadh is different from 1,000 kilometers away in Jeddah, where they have a different dialect and likewise. So it's important to localize not only to the language, to the consumer behavior, and we are doing it from day one when we have launched a beta app in UAE as well as Egypt, where we focus on each city by city, try to understand the consumer behavior from the usage. When they give any feedback on our Discord, we go back and we try to localize it, tweak it. In 1 hour, we ask the user, does this make sense? And we try to get those customers who love you, and we are building that kind of localization element, not from a language, but from a consumer behavior to get that product market fit across all the markets, which you're focusing on.
Yeah. And then, Nuha, the second question as well around, you moved from the US. You obviously are from the region originally. We always ask it this way, if the Middle East is an emerging market, will it ever emerge or in our lifetime? What do you think?
I definitely feel that it has the potential to do so. And in fact, if we're talking about like the UAE and Egypt, I mean, UAE is like the hub for startups now. And as you rightly mentioned, fintech and Egypt in the past few years has been like skyrocketing in terms of like the economy and startups. So definitely I see a lot of potential in the region. And you sense that also from investors who have never invested in the region before, but you see them having a lot of interest in the region recently.
Yeah. Fascinating. And, as well as you're in touch with the youth, with the Gen Z, and, many of them will want to work and live in Dubai from Egypt or wherever, but they also want to stay in the region now, don't they? Like maybe you returning from the US, but there is that sort of energy about the region and young people. There's more hope because we've seen unicorns, we've seen exits, we've seen that sort of startup energy in the region. It seems like a very exciting time.
It is very exciting. And I think, in fact, almost, 25 or 30% of the region is under the age of 25 or under the age of 30. So, so it's definitely a young era.
Brilliant. Positive note to finish on. Well, thank you so much for sharing this story. I think it's been great to have, both the CEO and the CTO on so we can hear from both sides. And you've sold me. I'll definitely be talking to people about this in the future and downloading the app. So congratulations on your launch this week and wishing you success in the future.
Thank you so much, Richard.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, sorry for the little technical difficulties that we had at the start of that. I hope you stuck with it. I hope you listened to the interview as it went on because they're two really nice people. I really kind of got on with them. Had a good chat afterwards. Nuha and Alok, they really know what they're doing and they've almost changed my negative perspective or almost closed-minded that I would never invest in fintech because I just don't understand it, but that's the type of company I could definitely get behind. This is not investment advice, but I could definitely get behind Zywa. A very nice company, very good thesis, and can see them doing great things. I wanted to say thank you to Richie, our videographer turned producer this week. Ali's on leave, and Shahir Al-Kindi, who booked this show, is unfortunately off sick today. So Richie's had to manage everything himself, but he's done an amazing job. Wherever you're listening to this on podcast, please do subscribe if you're on Apple, or share a link with Angami or with Spotify or with Podio or wherever you're listening to anyone who you think might be interested. Any new follower, any new listener is always appreciated, and any feedback as well. On Dubai Works, we don't only do startups or fintech startups, we do lots of different industries and established businesses as well that are C-suite or founder in the UAE. They have to be practicing in the UAE, and it's around Dubai being a business capital. So that's the type of guest that we're looking for. But of course, we've got lots of other shows on smashy.tv. You can check it out on web, browser, iOS, Android, or some of the smart TV operators as well. Please do check that out. Listen to some of our other shows, or follow any of our social media profiles. We're launching them on TikTok as well if you're interested. Thanks, and we'll be back again next week.